We have this from Fox News. Stanford releases guide to eliminate harmful language, cautions against calling U.S. citizens American. Stanford's index says its goal is to eliminate many forms of harmful language. So you said maybe the fervence or the zeal that the right could tap into is Americanism. There's America first, but they're preempting you. They're already coming out and saying it's harmful language to do so.
Which is a good sign that this is actually the direction we need to be going.
Well, see, the left is smart in this
point.
way because the things that they've replaced religion with, they are actually tools in which they gain more power, whether that's feminism, radical leftism, wokeism, you name it. These are actually tools that not only replace religion,
COVIDism, climatism,
exactly,
all of these.
They simultaneously further state control. It's actually the opposite with the right. What are we trying to get people passionate about? Small government, religion, families, being less subservient to the government. It's funny, we're actually shooting ourselves in the foot by trying to breed this, fervence in dependency and otherwise living happily lives that don't require us to become servants of the state. The left is smart in that way. They understand that if you want people to essentially need you, you need to not only make it their politics, but also their personal identity.
And religion as well. And I think that
religion.
with the absence of religion, I think a lot of people replaced, the Christian church or the, Islam with specifically the state, and they worship Fauci. They have candles of him. They have, altars of him. So I think at the end of the day, the Republicans need to be called out because if they're good at anything, it's capitulating and surrendering. Kevin McCarthy right now, I don't see reigning in the FBI. He has an opportunity to do so. He's not. But Trump is still endorsing him. Kevin McCarthy called for Donald Trump to resign as president of the United States. Why are you endorsing him and telling your local Congress members not to fight his appointment? This is absolutely crazy.
I mean, eventually the disruptor becomes the institutionalist. That's not true in just politics.
Well, did you see what McConnell said? That the number one priority for Republicans is actually to ensure that Ukraine gets those missiles and is able to defeat Russia.
This says Zelensky is coming to the United States Capitol to address the United States. Yes, coming? As there's going to be a big bill negotiating $46 billion that's going to be additionally possibly sent to Ukraine to prolong this larger proxy war, which is bringing us closer to the brink of nuclear holocaust.
You mentioned earlier in the show, Luke, about how they're taking your tax money. And I was going to say something then, but I'll say it now too about this all the money they're sending to Ukraine. It's modern monetary policy. They're not really taking your tax money. They're just mass printing your money and extracting through inflation from your savings. So whether it's paid or not, they're finding a way to gut the American middle class so they can fund their wars. They could do whatever they want. There's no oversight in that.
Well, it's a transfer of wealth from everybody else to the super rich. It's socialism for the super rich that we're seeing right now with specifically the military-industrial complex getting their way. We're running out of missiles. There's other countries that are running out of bullets, especially Germany. There was a news report saying Germany has given out so much bullets, they're running out of ammunition.
Canada is one of those countries that's now critically low in
exactly.
arms.
So you want to go in this direction, though? You know, a funny fact here? Okay, so which is the major developed country that lobbied against the EU ban on Russian oil imports? Anyone know the answer to this? It's the United States. The Biden White House was the major nation that was begging the EU, as we now head into the end of the year, the EU ban on Russian oil imports goes into effect now. Why is that? It's actually, there's a long reason why. I mean, we've gone to war in our own fossil fuels industry that actually worries about the consequences for global, let's just say oil and gas markets if that EU ban actually goes in, especially when Chinese coronavirus-related restrictions are being lifted. There's a supply-demand shock. But I want to point out the irony of this. We are, with one hand, sending $40 to $45 billion or more to Ukraine to fight against Vladimir Putin, while with the other hand are the leading nation that calls for overriding the EU ban on Russian oil imports, which in turn finances Putin's war machine to actually invade Ukraine. So that's why the whole thing is actually even a farce. The idea of getting into should we or should we not support Ukraine? Okay, I think we're over allocated to Ukraine. We need to focus our military's energy on the one geopolitical threat that matters to the United States, which is China. But that's a policy point. Here's, even if you were committed to the pro-Ukraine cause at all cost, even the effectuation of that is itself frustrated by the fact that if you wanted to do it, you would be starving Putin's army, yet Biden is the one who's actually arguing for allowing Putin to finance his war machine by selling oil and gas to Europe, which is actually the laughable farce of the whole thing.
And I believe it was also fertilizer as well, I think. Someone could fact check me as well, that they were also buying a bunch of fertilizer from them and financing them that way.
Why are we doing it? Why are we playing both sides on the issue?
So it's because it's a form of self-loathing, actually. I don't mean this just in a culturally superficial sense. I mean in a deep-seated sense. We live in a moment of Western and particularly American self-loathing. And I'll just, since I brought up the oil and gas example, I mean, I could give you 6 spheres of life where this is true, but let's talk about the oil and gas example since I just brought it up, all right? Why is it that, now we're talking about other religions, now let's talk about climatism. Why is it that the members of the Church of Climate, the climate activists, are so averse to the United States producing oil and gas, but are perfectly fine with global markets that allow the likes of PetroChina and also many Russian oil and gas producers to pick up the slack? Ironically, oil and gas producers over there who have actually methane leakage that is far worse than in the Permian Basin of Texas. And by the way, even if you subscribe to the climate religion, methane is 80 times worse for the global atmosphere and global warming than is every unit of carbon dioxide. Why are they okay with that? The answer to that question is the same as the answer to the question of why those are the exact same people who are also opposed to the development of nuclear energy in the United States, which would actually be the single most efficient form of carbon-free energy production known to mankind. What's going on? The problem isn't that, let's say, nuclear energy wouldn't be good enough at solving the alleged climate crisis. It is that it would be too good at solving the alleged climate crisis, which in turn is really just a vehicle for effectuating the agenda of global equity. So you want to know the answer to the question why, Tim? It is because this is a moment of global redistribution back from the West to the other side of the world, including Russia and China. And everything in our self-loathing is flogging ourselves for the sins, the perceived sins of the last century, to say that we're going to give the $45 billion to Ukraine. But we also want to make sure that actually we shift oil production to places like Russia and we don't ban the EU ban on Russian oil imports, because it's really just a form of self-loathing at its core. That's what we're seeing on display.
And just really quick, that's because war is a racket. And throughout history, there have been powerful people supporting both sides. That's been well documented. But with the United States supporting Ukraine right now and giving them billions and billions of dollars, there's this misnomer that it's, Ukraine's just doing whatever Ukraine wants. It's Ukrainian policy. But we not only incentivize the continuation of this proxy war, which is extremely dangerous, but also at the same time, we have to remember when Zelensky actually reached a peace deal with Putin, they had a date where they were supposed to come together, sit down, meet, and negotiate and sign a peace deal. We had Western powers come to Ukraine. Specifically, the UK Prime Minister came there and said, no, you're not signing this peace deal. And Ukraine has been the one backing away from peace, continuing this war, endangering everyone, which is absolutely insane, as this war is also hurting the poorest people in the world, not just the people of Ukraine, but this has global economic impacts that's going to wreck our whole entire financial system in ways that we have never seen before.
And I think it's right to say that for a lot of the activist class, there is absolutely self-loathing involved, especially when it comes to the climate change agenda. But when it comes to Ukraine specifically, and yes, even climate change, I also don't want to underestimate how many people are actually getting rich off of this, how many people are getting rich off of the subsidies to green energy that, no, you're right, it's not as efficient as nuclear. Places like France, like we already know that if we were to build new nuclear plants in the US, which I don't think has been done since the 70s, they would be even safer than the ones that exist now, but we haven't been able to do it because of fear-mongering. Same with Ukraine. It's bad for America. It is very good, very lucrative for the military-industrial complex. Zelensky actually spoke at one of these conferences for, I guess, big war. They're not even trying to hide it at this point. It's so blatant, the exchange that's happening.
There, you mentioned with climate change, and it reminded me of this viral video that people keep sharing where it's this guy saying, if all of this stuff was true in every prospectus for a new construction, construction, it would say, the condos in Miami Beach, in 30 to 40 years, your investment will be zero as the water rises and makes this area uninhabitable. But not a single bank, not a single person has ever brought that up. So why are they still investing in? Why are they still buying 30 to 40 year properties or loans if the water is going to rise and wipe out this whole area?
No, they're living in the beachfront properties so that other people can't do it, and so they're safe and they are willing to take the bullet for all of us by living
bearing that cross.
Exactly.
The beach cross.
Exactly.
Bill
Yes,
Gates,
beach
brave
cross.
man, lots of beachfront property as well. Barack Obama,
yeah.
lots of beachfront
Very brave.
property.
Yeah,
Very
willing to
brave
throw
guys.
that grenade.
We want to thank these guys for their sacrifice. It really means a lot to us. Thank you.
It's the meme of from The Simpsons of the person jumping in front of the bullet for Apu or whatever. They're trying to save us.
I love that. Your funny Bill Gates story. He was he was my college commencement speaker, and you know what I was looking at that time? He was the world's richest man. I didn't come from a lot of money. I was unapologetically ready to make some after I got out of college, moving to New York, working at a hedge fund. I was like, all right, let's figure out how one creates the level of wealth that Bill Gates has. The only thing he would talk about is how to. The whole speech. It was one of the more disappointing speeches I heard in my life. I remember it. I met him on stage afterwards. It was all about how to give back what one has gained, and I love. And ever since that moment, I was like, look, the expression of even giving back doesn't make sense to me because it assumes that one took in the first place. Actually, I think he's done a lot of taking ever since he started the Giving Back Project, but making the PC was not actually the one thing that he took in the first place. That was actually the one thing that he created. And I think it was right around then. I mean, this was so I graduated from college in 2007. Then came the 2008 financial crisis right after I graduated. And that was when this period of apologism began. And that's why I think Americanism, for a different reason too, is part of the solution. Is once we stop having to apologize for the successes of the modern West, for the successes of modern America, we can have a model that the rest of the world can follow to lift themselves up. But I could almost pick 99% of the things that the four of us at this table would find disappointing about the direction of modern American culture and pin it to this culture of apologism for our own success. And I think that's why the answer can't be us going one at a time, playing whack-a-mole, trying to send that mole back into its rabbit hole, but to instead fill that void with a sense of revived pride, an unapologetic pursuit of excellence, saying that is what it means to be American. I am not going to apologize for it through some climate religion that causes me to adopt an emissions cap, through some racial equity system that causes me to use a racial quota system to hand out goods according to some metric other than merit. No, I'm going to do this in the same way that got us 250 years into this experiment. I am not going to apologize for it. If we're going to make it another 250 years from now, that's how we're going to do it. And I think we need to I wouldn't use the word religious, but I think we need to get fanatical behind the idea that set the whole experiment into motion rather than hanging on. And you might disagree with me here, but rather than hanging on the thin siren song of proceduralism, right? Liberals abandoned liberalism because they were smart. There's something about the idea of just, hey, it's just about free speech, free markets, hey, individual autonomy. Those are just procedural norms that don't satisfy the more base human hunger in a way that wokeism or climatism or COVIDism does. And I think that what the right needs to wake up to in this country is that just falling back on the slogans of liberalism, proceduralism is not going to be enough. We need our own affirmative values. I think excellence, the unapologetic pursuit of excellence, what I was just talking about, probably belongs on that list. Maybe somebody else says it's something else, but we need an affirmative content that people can actually get fanatical about, but it's actually content that's actually far more rich than wokeism on the other side.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.